Remember when Attack on Titan was about titans against humanity? Well, then this happened. So yeah, let's talk all about that. Hello everyone and welcome back to a new breakdown video of the latest episode of Attack on Titan. This episode was packed with information, so we have a lot to talk about today, so let's jump right into it. Our new episode goes back to the cave to a very anticipated fight between Grisha and Frida, showing us the latest moments in the cave and the massacre of the Race family. The important thing to notice here is how Grisha's Titan eyes changed colors as soon as he devoured Frida. After the heartbreaking moment of Zeke hugging his father, he finds himself back in the paths, looking at Eren. In my previous video, I explained why Grisha gave away his Titan even after he told Zeke to stop Eren. It was because Grisha found out that Carla eventually died, but now we also learned that Eren showed Grisha some distant events in the future. In the previous episode, we got a glimpse of a scene from the previous season, straight from the medal ceremony. Here, we finally find out what Eren actually saw on that day. While touching Historia's hand, Eren witnessed some future memories of himself inside of his father's memories. In addition to the events in the cave, he also saw a distant events in the future that Eren refers to as the scenery or the sight. This is the most crucial moment in Eren's character development, as the moment that will drive him to move towards the future that he saw. But the main difference is that this vision made Grisha terrified. But for some reason, Eren is looking forward for it. How can two people look at the same thing but react so differently? That will be revealed later in the story. But here is the most important thing, as Zeke later mentions it. Even though Eren saw a specific future, he didn't see everything leading to that future. He doesn't know everything, just like he didn't know he can't use the power of the founder in that place. And that fact is the first and true confirmation of how Eren is not actually free like he believes. And why is that? First, we need to understand something important. From a scientific point of view, once a certain future is observed by someone, that future can no longer be changed, for the simple reason that it already happened to someone. Think about it. In order for it to become a memory or some vision, it means that someone had to witness that exact moment from his perspective at some point in time. Just like the past is not just moving images, so does the future. The only difference is that regular people can't see their future, and that is where Eren is different. What does it mean to be free? One aspect is being able to make your own decisions and to control your destiny. But what if your decisions don't matter and the final result always remains the same? That is Eren's condition, because the future can't be changed. Every decision Eren will make will lead to the same result. That means that every choice he will make is irrelevant to the final result. But because he doesn't know the exact way his future self took, he can't really change anything. He is just destined to make the same choices his future self took. Because his decisions don't change anything, he doesn't have a real freedom of choice. And because he's been following blindly after the events he saw, Eren became a slave to his own future memories. This is one of my favorite Eren moments, which I explained in much more detail in a previous video. And it is what started his most noticeable character development, because when Eren was watching the ocean, that was actually after he witnessed all of this. We all were thinking his change happened on the 4-year time skip, while in fact it happened even before he ever saw the ocean. Eren kept following his future memories as he kept seeing things come true, like Sasha's death as an example. This and many other events will make Eren realize over time that the future is set in motion and what he saw will happen eventually. Going back to the episode, Zeke is terrified from this all new information and he orders Ymir to execute his plan. Eren brutally breaks free from his chains and goes after Ymir before she reaches the coordinates. Right after the opening song, we go back to a familiar scene with young Historia and Frida. To remind you, Frida used to visit Historia back then and kept erasing her memories after she left. At this moment, around 10 years ago, we see Frida telling Historia about the history of Eldia. But we can see this is one of the different versions of history in our story, showing Ymir getting the power from the devil of the earth. Frida tells Historia that she should act like a lady, like the girl in the book, which she named Krista. That is why Historia took the name Crystal later on, and also took Frida's advice of becoming a person that everyone loves, to always think of others and to always help them, and in return they will help her and love her back. With her words in the background, we go 2000 years to the past, to a little village where we see young Ymir. We find out that Ymir was not a god or a devil, she was a simple girl living in her village, and just like Frida's words, she was a kind person. One day, a small tribe attacked her village, killing what seems to be her family and taking the rest as slaves. We see how the slaves were brutally mutilated, having their tongues cut off. Ymir spent her life as an actual slave, but she was always fascinated by the concept of love. She acted just like Frida described, as her simple truth was to show love to people, and in return, they will love her back. Ymir only wanted to be loved, as we see her looking fascinated at the Eldian couple in the streets. At some point, some pigs got free. Yes, the pigs started everything. But anyway, the nice king of the tribe threats to take an eye from every slave if they won't tell him who is to blame. All the slaves point at Ymir, and we get a nice reference to the curse of Ymir, as we see 13 hands pointing a finger at her. Ymir, being a person who helps people and just wanted to be loved, didn't show any signs of defiance. So the tribe king sets her away with the sinister phrase, "You are free," while releasing her to be hunted down as a game in the forest. Ymir, injured and crying, stumbled next to a familiar flower, the same we saw when Zeke was near death, just before Ymir built his body. She looks ahead and sees a huge tree. In the manga, the shape of that tree was a bit more distinct, showing the form of a man and a woman. Ymir goes into the base of the giant tree to hide, but she slips down, deep into the water, and here is where things go to the next level of weird, and we get to meet my little friend. Around 2 years ago, this chapter came out and blew the internet, what made me spend hours searching for an organism similar to this one. 2 years ago, I made a prediction in this video, which actually came true a year later. Today, this creature is known as the Hallucigenia, but it is important to say that it is only designed after it, and clearly this creature has been added some fictional traits to fit the story. The only thing you need to know for now is that this is the source of all living things that Kruger was talking about. It is also the devil, like in Frida's book. This shows you how history and legends mixed and got twisted along the years, creating several versions of the same story. I would say carefully that this is somewhat equivalent to different religions we have in our world today. For now, this creature is referred to as something of some parasitic nature. While Ymir is slowly drowning, the organism attached to her spine, and the first titan appears above ground. A nice reference to Nordic mythology is the first giant, Ymir, which according to legends, after his death his body parts were used to create the earth, the sea, the sky and the clouds. Sadly enough, instead of reclaiming her freedom now that she has all this power, Ymir came back to serve the king. As hard as it is to understand, Ymir did love the king and still wanted his approval and affection. Of course, this sense of love was not what we could call a healthy one, and Ymir's condition could be considered as some kind of Stockholm syndrome. The king uses the power of Ymir to destroy their enemy, the Marley tribe. Now we see the history that made the people of Marley hate Eldia so much, but at the same time we see how Ymir helped build the nation, just like Grisha told the restorationist years before, to show us again two versions of the same history from both sides of the conflict. Here we also first learn that the small tribe is the tribe of Eldia, and this king is a member of the Fritz family and the first of the royal bloodline, and more on that soon. In addition to using her power, the king also forces Ymir to bear his children, and they bring to life Maria, Rose and Sina. The same names that Karl Fritz will name his 3 walls on Paradise Island years later. We see how the empire of Eldia is slowly becoming bigger and stronger as Ymir keeps on conquering other nations. We finally get to the point where someone decides to face the king, as one soldier tries to kill him with a spear. In her final act of blind love, Ymir defends the king with her body. Ymir can't die, and like Titan Shifter, she should recover, but we also saw in the past that this is a question of willpower. If the Shifter doesn't have the will to live anymore, his body won't recover. Same for Ymir, as the last words the king tells her are, "Stand up, my slave." When she sees that even in her death, the king still won't look at her as a person, Ymir gives up on her second chance and finally closes her eyes. Unfortunately for Ymir, the Hallucigenia now dwelling inside her body prevented her from actually dying, and instead she found herself stuck in a place beyond time and space, like a ghost that can't move on. In a selfish attempt to preserve her powers, the king makes her 3 daughters eat their mom. This is a panel that was foreshadowed ever since the second season of the anime, and also the first time the Titan powers were transferred. This is the moment Ymir's Titan split into 3, and will keep on splitting into the final 9. And for the obvious question, no, there is no explanation for why it stopped at just 9. While this happens, we see the coordinates first appearing in front of Ymir and splitting into 3. They will keep on splitting, just like a giant family tree, as the power will be passed over and over from generation to generation. Ymir's daughters just kept repeating the same thing, and so did their kids, with the founding Titan always being kept in the royal family, the Fritz family. This is the same royal family that later changed her name to race inside the walls. They are the same, with the same royal blood, just like Historia and just like Zeke. So royal blood basically is a very close relation or connection to Maria, Rose and Sina, and the original Fritz family that always held the founding Titan. This is why Ymir will keep on serving each of the royal blood members for years, and also build Titans for 2000 years. And this is something important that I mentioned before. Time works differently in this place. The Titan transformations look like they happen instantly, but in reality, Ymir spends days, months, or even years building their Titans and sending them down to the Shifters. This is what she's been doing for 2000 years, over and over again, a slave with no will of her own. At that moment we go back to our time as Eren hugs her, telling her she has the right to decide, to stay here forever or to end everything right now. Zeke hears that and starts running towards them, telling Ymir she must obey him because he has the royal blood. Zeke treated her just like the king did, as a tool and not as a person. While at that moment, Eren showed her compassion and acknowledged her pain, and for the first time, someone looked at her as a real person. And in her first act of defiance, Ymir decides to give her powers to Eren as she opens her eyes, and back on the battlefield, all the walls starts to break down. We see the organism attaching itself to Eren's head as he regains consciousness, and something the anime added is this frame of Zeke being swept by it as well. This was not in the manga, and it will come in handy later on in the story, trust me. We see a giant Titan forming, the biggest one we have ever seen, and notice that it has the same basic look as the organism. After the walls break, the wall Titans start marching, and Armin and Mikasa watch everything from the distance. Armin tries to tell her that Eren is on their side, and he is going to use the Titan to crush the enemy. But when he looks around, he sees that all the walls are broken. This is the rumbling in its full power. And at that moment, Mikasa and Armin hear Eren's voice in their head and find themselves in front of the coordinates. This happens to every other Eldian on the face of the world, and this is because the coordinates are the connection between all subjects of Ymir. So basically, only Eldians can witness this event. The people of Marley, for example, don't see this message from Eren. There is something important to mention here. The Ackermans are known to be immune to the powers of the founding Titan, especially the mind manipulation. But still, we see that Mikasa is part of this experience. That proves for the first time that Mikasa, which is an Ackerman and part of the Asian clan, also has some connection to subjects of Ymir, and that connection will be revealed later on. It is still important to understand that Mikasa is immune to any power of the founding Titan, which was proven when Uri couldn't control Kenny. While all the Eldians across the world witness the same thing, they all hear Eren's words. and for the first time we get to hear Eren's plan. Eren came to realize that the hate against all Eldians of the world will never go away, and because of that the entire world will always want them dead. But he rejects that wish, and in response, and to protect his home and friends, he is going to use the rumbling to flat the entire world as an act to destroy all hate from the face of this planet. And it is important to say that all Eldians outside the island are also in danger. This is Eren's act of protecting his nation. In his mind, the only way right now to clean the world from hate is to destroy it completely, like a giant reset to the entire universe. And with that grim message, our episode ends. Another thing to mention is the title of this episode, From You 2000 Years Ago, which syncs beautifully with the name of the first episode, To You in 2000 Years, to signify maybe Ymir's message across the years, a message for Eren, or maybe for someone else entirely. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Again, another amazing and jaw-dropping episode, so let me know your thoughts. Will Eren destroy the entire world? Let me know what you think. And also don't forget to subscribe to get all the updates for future videos. I am going to surprise you with some cool ones real soon. Thank you so much for joining me today, my Titan-loving friends, and I hope you enjoyed. I will see you all real soon, and until then, don't forget to dedicate your hearts to humanity inside and outside the walls.